Hello and welcome to a very special episode of That Shooting Show. My name is Steve Anderson. I am your humble host. We are joined by two of my favorite human beings on the planet, the mighty Gazz Evans from South Africa with intermittent technical difficulties, and the mighty Beal from his beautiful basement that has more props than your local USPSA club. How's it going, Gazz?
Hey, good. Thanks in you, Steve.
Oh, we're just doing great. Very, very happy to be here. And the mighty Jay, you've stopped dry firing for several seconds. Is that what's happened?
Yeah. I'm done with that. I don't have anything in reach of myself, so I can't go clickety clacking while we're recording a podcast.
I remember you were literally practicing trigger pull when you're supposed to be answering a question.
Yeah, I mean, I can only do something well at a time, and I chose to do the trigger pulling.
All right. So, Gaz, what do you have coming up this year? What do you have scheduled that you're looking forward to?
So right now I'm still trying to work out some sort of schedule on trying to get to another international match. So I'm trying to work out a budget on that, trying to see how I can make that happen. Alternative to that, we've got a nationals coming up later this year, which I believe is in September, somewhere around there. So right now I'm doing more planning than I am actually practicing or working on something very specific, so that once I've got it all planned, then I can start working on the specific things again.
Good. And Jay, what do you got coming up?
Next one is in early May. I'm going to Ohio for must be the Buckeye Blast. No, wait. Yeah.
You know what? Do you know what day that is in May by any chance? You probably don't.
I think it's the 4th through 7th.
Yes, I know that because I'll be waving at you on the road as I drive to North Carolina, or maybe our planes will pass each other and we can do practice score competitor while our planes pass.
Yeah, so that's where I'm going first, and then some combination of Maine State and New Hampshire State, and then there will be Optics Nationals, and then I have some time in between there. Maybe I'll shoot Area 7, and then I'm signed up for the US IPSC Nationals, and that's later in the year. That's in November. So maybe, Gaz, you should fly to that one. Though, I mean, it's easy to say that to people, but that would be a cool one to shoot together.
That's usually in Florida, right?
That's in Florida, yeah.
Yeah, frostproof, I think.
They moved it to Felucia or something. It's somewhere. I don't know. It's somewhere else. It's not frostproof.
You hear that and I say, bye, Felucia. All right. So before we waste too much time on shenanigans, let's get into some topics here. Oh, I have some marketing to do first. I have decided to do a free preview, a 30-minute free preview of mental management on April 12th at 6 p.m. Because I think there are a lot of people sitting on the fence going, man, he just keeps talking about this and I don't even know what he's talking about. So if you've been curious about mental management and how it can help you, there's only 8 spots left for this free preview, April 12th. Go to andersonshooting.com, upcoming classes. You can click on that free preview. It'll be about 30 minutes of preview, and then we'll take questions for as long as we feel like taking questions for. Okay, so just go to andersonshooting.com, upcoming classes, and you can also see on that same page the same stuff. All this other stuff we'll be doing, except for the fact that I'm going to be in South Africa, we think most of June, which will be pretty cool.
Yeah.
Very much looking forward to that.
It's gonna be neat.
So this is a very common question that always causes me to have to pause to be super polite. Like whenever we're working on shot calling with people and they have a low left one, like a really low left, and they didn't call it, and then they say, oh, that must have been my grip. Okay. My immediate response is, that's great, but I really don't care. What I care about is the fact that that happened and you didn't see it, right? Because don't you guys think if grip or trigger has caused a flinch or some sort of gun aiming problem, isn't that the point of shot calling, that we see that that problem has occurred?
Yeah.
Who wants to go first?
I'll go. I mean, I was, because I mean, if I'm in speed mode and I'm going and I'm pushing really hard in live fire to make something happen, then I will make mistakes. And sometimes that mistake is like really low left. And it's funny how it arrives, because it is something that it's something you see, but also at that same moment you feel it as well, because you feel like maybe it's your right hand like really clamping down too much, and then maybe you aren't gripping hard enough with your left hand and stuff. So you definitely see it, and you feel it, and you might even feel it right before you see it.
Yeah, that's the other one that gets under my skin a little bit, is when they say, I felt it. What I think, well, so maybe they did feel it, right? Maybe what they're saying is, I felt it in my hands when I start. I kind of hear it is, I felt the disturbance in the force. Well, ideally, you would have seen something, right? Because that's the whole point of shot calling. I think there's 30 milliseconds between touching the trigger and the gun going off. That's the best number I can come up with, because somebody told me that's how long it takes to blink the human eye. And so it's got to be the same, because if you blink, you'll miss it, right? So if there's 30 milliseconds of touching that trigger and the gun going off, and I overgrip, or I over trigger, or I flinch, or whatever I'm doing, I don't care about any of that. I don't. I want them to be able to see it, right? And so Jay gave the Zen Buddhist monk answer, and now Gazz will give us the Harvard professor answer, because we like them. Go right ahead, Gazz. What's going on?
Okay, so I think what happens, it depends on how you're training it. So Jay mentioned speed mode, and normally in that environment, we're not going to be sending any makeup shots, but it's important that we see what happened. And if we don't see it, I think the first inkling that people get into shot calling is that feeling of something wasn't right, something happened, and the result of that was the poor low left shot. And then as we progress through the shot calling, we get more and more afraid with it, to the point that we're only seeing the imperfection, and then we're needing to fix that. So if we're training shot calling in isolation, the beginning stages, like, we'll feel that something was wrong. And as we advance through it, we'll start seeing what happened, as opposed to feeling what happened. And I think the seeing part is going to happen sooner and quicker than what the feeling part will.
That's interesting. So I would just encourage people, like, especially with a dot, because we don't care about iron sights. It's primitive and archaic. It's older than a VCR. We don't care about them. And they literally are older than VCRs. They literally are older than VCRs. But you just think about, okay, good, whoopsie, good, oops, right? It's those oops. And I would rather people see the oops than feel the oops, right?
Yeah.
So I guess I should be grateful that they know something's not right.
Yeah. So I think there's a time that, like, if you're transitioning off of a target and you look away from the target before you pull the trigger on your current target, then you will not see what happens. I mean, like, so there's stuff like that. And so it's just a matter of being aware of what's going on. And also, like you mentioned, if you blink when you pull the trigger, then you're not going to see what's happening.
Right.
And so if I'm not able to see what's going on, or I'm training and I'm not sure what happened, like, the first thing I do is force myself to physically open my eyes wider, so that I know that I'm paying attention, and I know that I'm seeing what's happening. And
so here's another shot calling thing that I hear about more and more often in classes. Have you guys ever called a shot on, like, an array and been right about the shot but wrong about the target? Has it ever happened to you? Maybe not recently.
Not in a match. I mean, not recently. I do hear people mention that quite a bit, and I've heard of people making up a shot on, like, the wrong target.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think what happens is they're probably staying with the sight as opposed to getting the eye slightly ahead, and they knew something in there was left. They just weren't able to process which one it was left on. Right?
Yeah.
And then on a similar note, I think the biggest obstacle to shot calling for people is they hold themselves to too much detail. Right? They go, that's going to be a close Charlie on the left, and it winds up being a wide Charlie or a delta, but it's still left. To me, that is a huge victory. Just an absolute victory. Gaz, you're in production now still, right?
Yes, full shooting production. Yeah,
Yeah, but really no difference in gear. It's all the same stuff.
pretty much the same. I just had to take some of the standard gun division goodies off the gun. That was it.
Okay. And we may have already asked you this, but I think it goes to shot calling. If we talk about sight focus versus target focus, are you in one camp or the other, or are you going back and forth depending on where the food's the best?
So it's actually interesting that you asked that question, because sitting here with this discussion, I've sort of managed to finish diagnosing something that I went through recently. And I think what happened was that shot calling became subconscious for me. And that sort of created some confusion in my program, my mental program, and it created some confusion in some of the training and that I was doing. So because shot calling became subconscious, it basically has no memory. So I couldn't recall consciously seeing the sights. I couldn't consciously recall that. But everything was there, alphas, close Charlies. And when I let that happen, I would have alphas, close Charlies. But as soon as I decided that I was going to see the sights and I forced that to happen, my accuracy dipped. And the only thing that I can diagnose from the whole experience is that shot calling became subconscious. And as soon as I trust that, then my accuracy falls into place again. My shooting speed increases, and I'm getting the best of everything that I've got in my training. When it comes to aiming, I think target focus is more something that I'm focused on.
So remember, Jay, you just talked about your eyes getting really wide so you could see more.
Yeah. Yeah, like that. Just like that. Look really, yeah. It's perfect. I'm not going to do it at the same time. It'd be too weird.
Break the internet. Gazz, that might be one of the coolest things I've ever heard somebody say. And that gives him two, by the way. That gives you the top two coolest things. Gazz's voice is like Jay's Instagram videos, right? But for smarter people, right? You just said that when you focus on calling your shots as opposed to telling yourself what you need to see, you're always seeing the right thing, and you're faster and more accurate. Oh, sorry, accurate. Faster and more accurate. Dude, that should be its own book, because people don't know that's possible.
Yeah.
I just want to take a moment and let the just like every hair on my body is a little antenna picking up Gazz's greatness. It's really phenomenal. Which may not happen during load shedding. The antennas may not work during.
It may not. You have to create your own static electricity.
Now, Jay, back to you. I had mental management, so we had to bump this an hour because I had a mental management class. And you came up and the guy said, you might want to write this in your journal, okay?
Yeah.
When I see people like Jay Beal and Christian Seiler shooting as fast as they do, I know I have to hurry up because I know that's what they're doing. He thinks you guys, maybe in some of your training videos you are, but yeah, he thinks that you're actively stepping on the gas. As opposed to what I think you're doing is pedaling in training and then coasting in competition.
Oh yeah, that's entirely true. Yeah. I mean, I'm pedaling really, really hard in training. And then, I mean, it's what you've always talked about with, if you really simplify it, like you have speed, you train in speed mode, and then you compete in match mode, which is one is based on a result that you're trying to get. And then one is just you're opening your eyes and you're just seeing.
Yeah,
and so you're
a little bit. So what would you say to somebody who thinks that in competition you're in a hurry?
I mean, I think that I would say that I'm definitely not in a hurry in competition. And I would say for them, if they think that they need to hurry, I would wonder how that's been working.
I knew you were trying so hard to be polite. This always starts because they've been doing it and it hasn't been working.
Yeah. And so then they're one of the people that default really want to go fast at matches. I've never really felt that. And maybe that's because I listened to your podcast really early on or something, I'm not sure. And so, yeah, that's going to be something that you're intentionally going to have to program against then. Mm-hmm. So like I would start for myself, I start in a preset where when I know I'm going to the match, I decide how I'm going to behave. And that's how I would begin to deal with that.
Yeah.
Uh,
And I have come to the conclusion that I think that consciously controlling your speed in competition is always an error.
Yeah. Yeah.
Gazz?
No, I agree. I agree.
Yeah. And you came up earlier today. I had an insider call with, do you know a guy named Dane Moore?
Not off the top of my head, no.
Just say yes because he knows you. Say, I think I know that guy.
I think I know that guy.
Yeah. Okay, good. Because he spotted with you before. And we were talking about your ability to win stages and matches with really uninteresting splits.
Okay,
Right.
yeah.
And he's like, I'm watching these guys shooting. Your name came up, and he's like, how am I going to get 2 to 3 seconds on these guys? And I'm like, well, it starts with reducing the time spent not shooting. Now that doesn't mean you don't have wicked splits when it's appropriate, but when I watch you shoot, I'm amazed, not amazed, I'm frequently surprised, right? Until I go look at the points and the hit factor and the victory, right? Did you make a conscious effort to focus on transitions and not worry about splits, or is that just how your shooting style evolved?
I think that when I started getting into the sport and I started researching all the different things, transitions kept coming up. So I started focusing more on transitions than I was focused on splits, because my splits have never been out the realm of being competitive, but they're not on the fast end, if you know what I mean. So I think consciously I trained transitions harder than I have ever trained on my splits.
Yeah.
Probably
all,
smart.
Go ahead, Jay.
No, that's certainly smart.
Well, if we look at the biggest numbers on the stage, obviously the splits is the last one that needs to be examined. That's just all there is to it. Okay, so here's the other thing, because I've been doing a ton of a ton of mental management. And when we talk about self-image and results, I think I've identified 4 possible results thinking, if we do catch ourselves thinking about results, that can provide a winning performance. Okay. And so a winning performance is when you go out and shoot your game, no regrets. And we tend to be pretty happy where we finish in that environment, right? It may not be what we want, but when we shoot our game with no regrets, we're usually pretty happy. Much happier than we go out and make a bunch of mental mistakes and come in 30th, which hasn't happened to you guys ever. Oh, you know what? So Gazz, you've got the top 2 coolest things I've ever heard. We'll have to determine if Jay is 3rd behind your 2 or if he goes right to number 1. Okay. So you'll be the judge. Okay. I have never had a dumpster fire match, and I never will. Is that 1st, 2nd,
I
or
think
3rd?
that one has to be first.
I think we can leave it at 3rd. I mean, I don't know if you can pass places on this list. I think, you establish your spot, like Gazz has got it.
What if those 3 form a triad state and they just need to be in equal balance?
Sure.
Perfect.
All right, so here's 4 potential thoughts of results that could give you a pretty subconscious performance. Okay. Number 1, I don't care about the results. People tend to shoot pretty well.
Sure.
Is that duplicable at a major match or at nationals?
I don't think so.
Not easily, no.
No. Here's the next one. The results will be whatever they'll be. That could also provide a pretty subconscious performance. Okay. You guys have been there. It is what it is. When it's, it's over, we'll see how it goes.
Yeah.
Yep.
That was the one I used at every nationals except my first one. Well, let me take that back. 1st and 3rd. Okay. First one, I wanted a clean match. Terrible goal because I shouldn't say terrible, inappropriate because it causes under trying. And under trying is a great way to come in 3rd, 4th, or 5th. In my case, 17th, right? In my 2nd nationals, I over tried. And that's a great way to come in 50th, which is about how that went. Okay. And either my last nationals or another one, my favorite one where I came in 27th, I know, Jay, it's 4 pages down where you go, but just bear with me. I'm getting old. Was it is what it is. I'm going to shoot my game and see where I place.
Yeah.
And so that's an option that can produce a subconscious performance. The next one is, I don't know what the result's going to be, but it's going to be good.
Mm.
Have you guys been there?
Yeah.
Gazz?
Yeah, I have.
And then the very top of it is what you guys experience locally and perhaps nationally, regionally, depending on where you go. I know I'm going to win this match.
Yeah.
Right? I know that exists for you guys locally, right?
Mm.
There are matches you guys go to that as soon as Garrett gets in his little El Camino clown car, he knows. Garrett got a new car, by the way. He's now rocking the El Camino.
It's great.
He used to have a little clown car with like really wide wheels. It looked sort of almost as gangster as his gold chain, but now he's upgraded to an El Camino. What do you guys call them? You don't call them El Caminos.
No, we pretty much, they fall into the same category as the bigger buckies.
Bucky, yeah, Bucky.
Yeah, pickup.
All right, so of these, I don't care about results. It is what it is. I'm not sure, but it's going to be good, and I'm going to win. Right? Don't you think that's a function of each shooter's self-image and where they're going?
Yeah. I think so. I mean, the last two have a lot more self confidence in them. With the last two, and then the other ones before that are kind of like they're along the lines of I don't really care that much.
So I think it is what it is fine, because so like for me, what that means is when I went to nationals for the last time I went, my personal life was in shambles. And I was, instead of being nervous about it, I was so looking forward to a break from my life that I wasn't even the slightest bit nervous.
Mm-hmm.
It was like, I cannot wait to go have a vacation and shoot guns. And my only thought on the result is, hey, I haven't been training very much. Let's just see what happens. And it was easy to shoot really consistently.
Yeah.
So Gazz, let me ask you a question about the world shoot.
Yep.
Don't care. Obviously not.
Not going to work.
Right. It is what it is. It'll be great, or I'm going to win. Which one did you choose?
I went in initially with the I'm going to win thing, but this is quite a while before the match. That had some changes and alterations to my self-image because I wasn't quite there yet.
Mm-hmm.
So I was stretching my self-image a bit too far. Second to that, I was sitting in, it's okay, it will be great. And when I got to the match, I had to change that again because of the start that I had. So I changed it to something that was more neutral, like it is what it is. Let me play my game. I don't need to worry about great or anything. So the neutrality of something like it is what it is awesome to revert back to when you need to.
So I want to thank you for being so honest about that. I know that's pretty personal, but I think it is what it is, unless you're in that top 5%, which you guys are certainly locally, regionally, and Garrett for you nationally. There's nothing wrong with I'm going to win this match. If you know it's true, right? Whatever you're thinking about the results needs to be something that you know is true. That's why I don't care doesn't work at a large match. But it is what it is until we get to that top 5%. I think it is what it is perfectly fine, especially if we're in an environment where we don't know what's going to happen, right? It's pretty cool. Jay, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I think that it is what it is, and along with that, the track record is that it's probably going to be really good. Mm-hmm. It is what it is. It's probably going to be really good.
Yeah, so you're right there. Now, I'm going to ask you a really hard question, Jay. I've been wanting to ask you this question for a long time. And if you don't want to answer it, just say, I'd prefer not to answer, because we don't edit the show.
Right, I know that.
Look how nervous he is, Gazz. He's more nervous than we ask him about his practice schedule. He's like, I have no idea. I don't know what happens in freezing cold water. I've never looked. I'm really nervous about all of this. All right, so Jay Beal, everybody knows you're going to be a national champion, right? Okay. Are you going to wait and see when it happens, or are you going to pick a year and say, this is my year? and let your self-image believe that whatever that year is the year.
I'll know when I will know when I get to tell myself that. I don't know if that answers it or not, but I will.
Question completely, Gazz. That's a tough one. That's really personal, but I think that's a great answer, right? There will be a time where you will feel like you deserve and own that title.
Yeah.
And only you will know, right?
Yeah. I
was just wondering how much you thought about it.
No, I mean, it's either it's that or that it will happen kind of more on accident, if which would be, in my circumstance, I think likely as well.
I think so too. I think your process is so good that there's going to be a moment for you where process and skill combine with confidence, right? Conscious, subconscious, self-image, and it just happens, right? And then I think it'll be much easier for you to do it again.
Yeah.
Because then you will be able to tell yourself, I've done it before, I can do it again, right?
Yeah.
Guess how many national titles do you have?
He doesn't even know. So many.
I think it's 3 or 4.
That's wonderful. Isn't it interesting that something you wanted so bad, you've now lost track of how many times you've done it?
True.
It's very, very interesting to me. Did I tell you guys I was a national champion once? Production master class.
Yes, you were.
Go Steve. All because Dave Savizny, who both of you may have to Google, right? And you shouldn't have to Google Dave Savizny. All because Dave Savizny said, hey, Steve, you got sights on your gun? Yeah, Dave, shut up. It's a dumb question. Use them. Oh, okay, cool. Now that's a great example of it is what it is, right? I cared about the results, but I didn't have any clue what to expect, right? But I knew that using my sights was my best shot. All right, so Garrett, we continued to talk to IPSC shooters who complain about short walkthroughs. And I want you to say something brilliant, maybe number 4 brilliant, so we can round out our top 5. When these IPSC shooters complain about short walkthroughs, what's the best answer to give them?
So with short walkthroughs, we get anything between 3 and 5 minutes, depending on how many rounds the stage is. So short courses at a national event, normally 3-minute walkthrough. Medium courses, they can swing either way, but I'd bank on being 3 minutes. As well, long courses, they'll give us 5 minutes sometimes. With those walkthroughs, you want to try and gather as much information as you can almost immediately. And you want to start training yourself. So the best way that I found to train myself for those shorter walkthroughs, that generally you've got a bigger squad, so you've got more guys trying to get through in a shorter period of time to develop that stage play. What you want to try and do at your club and regional sort of matches, your leagues, is start giving yourself one opportunity to walk the stage. Because realistically, in a bigger squad, that's what you're going to get. And the more that you do it, the more comfortable you're going to be with saying, okay, this is how the stage feels. And now I can start working on my visualization. So you might have to compartmentalize your visualization through memorization first until you've got the whole stage memorized, and now you can start visualizing. So it's a case of paying quite a lot of attention to where the targets are. And when you first do it, it might be quite difficult. So if you're typically accustomed to taking 5 walkthroughs, reduce that periodically as often as you can. So go from, okay, I normally get 5 walkthroughs, go to 3. And from there, go to 2 and go to 1. And you'll notice that on the short courses, you'll fairly quickly learn how to go from, let's say, for argument's sake, 5 walkthroughs down to 1. But the trick is going to be teaching yourself to be able to do that on your longer courses of fire, your 20 rounds plus. That might take a little bit longer. And there's some variables that you can't consider, like some memory stages that you might not have enough opportunity. But the more you work the skill, it's almost like a muscle. That's the best way I could describe it. The more you work on that skill, the more easier it becomes for you to diagnose and create the solution that you require for something like a memory stage.
And you mentioned something that I frequently forget is when they talk about short walkthroughs, I tend to forget about the 3-2-1 principle, which means it's only really a problem 30% of the time, because on a 12 rounder, that one walkthrough should be sufficient to get a memorization and a visualization, I would think.
Yes.
Right. Jay, have you ever shot a stage after only walking it one time?
Yeah, it went really well. No, but it was
good.
I didn't have any other choice. I got one walkthrough on it. I hadn't seen it before, and I was the first shooter, and so I could either like shoot it consciously or go off of what the information that I gathered and just trust it. And I like what you said too, Gazz, about, I mean, like training anything, you know, you throw yourself in the deep water so that you can, you know, kind of learn a little bit faster. And so if you try breaking it to one walkthrough, I think that's a really cool way to do it, where you say, I only have one walkthrough on this, and I'm going to do it for the entire match. And I'm going to, when I'm done with this experience, I'm going to be a lot better at doing it.
Now, we know Jay Beal can't be bothered to hold the timer, but Garrett, I know you have some experience trying to be a great shooter and an RO, because I've seen you do it. Whereas Jay, I don't even know. I think he can only use it on delay when it's on his belt. I think he'd have to be an RO like that, you know. What do you think about? What do you think about trying to get that done while you're also the RO? We hear that a lot.
So funnily enough, the ROing thing sort of came up as part of the training for this. So what I wanted to do was start introducing distractions at my matches so that I could adapt and overcome those distractions. So it would make me more malleable to things that I cannot control. So that's how ROing became more of a thing for me, but normally only at club level matches, and then occasionally at leagues, which would be a level 2 match, where I'd sort of step in and help RO where I can, just so that I've got the adaptability in those situations that I cannot control.
And I think being RO has a couple of advantages. Now, you probably shouldn't do this if you're focusing on being a great RO, but an RO could kind of look at the stage while he's watching the shooter. I mean, he should be watching the gun, obviously. So let's not do that. But could for sure take a glance at the stage while he was scoring targets.
Mm-hmm.
Could for sure be getting a walkthrough during that. And
yes,
RO might be in control of the walkthrough time to a certain extent. So there's an advantage there. And at smaller matches could be in control of the shooting order. Right. And of course, you guys are trying to make things more difficult instead of easier. But that's the other thing we hear in mental management all the time is, well, I'm stuck with the timer. How am I supposed to get 20 reps? Right. So I just want to touch on that briefly. You talked about memory stages. Go ahead, Gazz.
If you are ROing and you want to try and get in those 20 reps, there's normally, depends on how involved you are as an RO. So if you have to be involved in restoring the stage as well as being the RO, then it's slightly different. But there's absolutely nothing wrong with you getting a visualization in while the stage is being reset after each shooter.
That's right. You really should be watching the gun as opposed to looking at the stage. Right? Nobody would.
While the shooter's shooting, then you've got to be the RO. You've got to be the official. But you can still get in your visualizations in between shooters. Sometimes there's a slight delay that you're not involved in. You get a chance to throw another visualization. And what I learned with ROing as well is it didn't always hurt for me not to visualize the whole stage. So I could visualize a portion, have to do something, RO, visualize another portion. So you can break it down that way as well if you're willing to be, if you're in a position where you can be adaptable.
And do you have a preference for ROing before or after you shoot, or do you care?
It doesn't bother me.
Because you're making it as tough as you can on purpose, just so that you're adapting to a worst case scenario.
Initially, yeah. Initially, that's what I was trying to do. Now it's fairly simple. I can RO until maybe I'm on standby, second standby, somewhere around there, and it's not too much of it doesn't have an adverse effect.
That's great. So the guy that I was talking to today in mental management, he told me about his last match. He'd only done the first class, and there's not a whole lot you can use from the first class when you go right to a match. But he told me about this IDPA stage that had two really tough swimmers. Okay, he did really great on the tough swingers, but he took, I think he took a complete miss on the 10-yard target that he shot in between swinger passes.
Mhm.
Okay, I knew immediately what had happened. Jay, what happened to him?
Well, I mean, first thing is just that you rushed, like that target got disrespected entirely because you were thinking about the swinger. I mean, I don't know what else could have happened.
That's exactly right.
What happened was the sights weren't on the target, and you pulled.
That reminds me of the chat I had with this lovely lady from Tennessee who I'm going to see this weekend. She's an older lady, so we have to well, we probably shouldn't. Maybe we'll just use my mom's voice instead. Steve, I'm having a problem at my local IDPA matches. My second shot is frequently a mic, and I just don't know what to do. And so that's interesting, ma'am. Where do you think the dot is when you fire the second shot? Oh, I haven't a clue.
Very honest.
The target doesn't either. The target also doesn't have a clue where the dot was. But haven't you guys know, or maybe you haven't, have you noticed or have you experienced that the better the shooter is, maybe the closer the mic is? Guys, have you seen that?
Closer to the target.
Yeah.
Sorry, as the shooter or as the miss goes past the target?
No, what I mean is what I have seen is that the better the shooter, the closer the target is to him that he's missed.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Have you guys gone through any of that?
Not really, but
No.
You know,
but
if you guys need me, I've got a puddle of water over here that I like to walk on just for practice. So I'll be over here walking on the water if you guys have any serious questions.
no, but I mean, I've experienced it in training. I've done it in training for sure.
Training, yeah.
I just remember I was squatted with a good friend of mine, very, very high level GM. And this was a long time ago. And he had some far stuff and had the really close guy at the very end. And he go, pop, 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 kaka. Right? And Alpha Mike, there's no way, buddy, that shot went right over the left shoulder. Right? While you were going, kaka, your ka was over here and your ka was over here. So your first ka was not in the card. It wasn't in the cardboard. It was somewhere else.
Somewhere else.
Oh my goodness. And of course, disrespecting that other target was caused by fixating on one aspect of the stage. Sometimes people will take a little nervous glance at the hardest part of the stage right before they shoot. And that means we know one of two things is getting ready to happen. Either that really tough part's going to get done well and everything else will suffer, or that the one part that we're really thinking about is going to be problematic. Right. Yeah. Jay, you'll have to think back to infancy when you used to make mistakes to remember things like that. back when you were a wee lad with your with your Browning buckmark sniping at squirrels in your diapers. I just want to tell you guys, I feel so fortunate to have you guys hanging around. Really, really great stuff. So I will let the two of you each pick either a final topic or a final question because we have covered all of my stuff.
Oh man.
Something you noticed or something you've, so there is a question. I saw your Insta reel. Is it a reel or a post these days? Because I don't know the difference.
I think it's a reel.
So reel is temporary, post is forever?
No, reels are just what they've just changed all the videos to reels, I think. So any video is a reel.
Okay. So you were putting out some pretty spicy first shot clicks. I saw 40, I saw 43 in there that might have been surrender. Was that right?
That was wrist below, and then there's a 57 surrender. Yeah.
And do you think those comments are genuine and authentic? Do you think those guys are just messing with you?
I know there's a couple that are just messing around, and then there's other people who don't know maybe what's what's happening. I didn't read a lot of them.
Too busy answering your fan mail. Is that the deal? Too busy getting fed grapes by former world champions on your throne. Is that what you're doing? So what were you attempting to do, or what was the purpose of that exercise?
I mean, so I was actually talking to Ben Hart about it a little bit, because he had a question about it, because and I kind of get what he was saying now, but I was, yeah, I mean, in speed mode, pushing myself to make mistakes, and maybe the mistake isn't necessarily the shot or something like that, but the mistake would be, which I don't really even think about it that way, but where it would be like there's a lot of tension that I feel, and I can feel it in my face and everywhere, and it's unnecessary tension, and it's just, pushing myself to do something that fast so that I can be aware of something that's going on, and then I can fix it. So that's all I'm doing. And it was just it's kind of an interesting, with the AMJs, you can have them set up to pick up dry fire shots, and so it's kind of a fun way to do it.
And was the shot just at the end of the stroke, or was there a visual component?
No, there's a visual component there.
Okay.
Yeah. Because I think that, like, at this point, I mean, the target is, like, I'm 2 yards away from the target, 2 or 3 yards away from the target, and so it's kind of cool to be able to see that the dot arrives. Like, I can see the dot as the trigger is pressed. It's in my view. And so if I'm looking at the right spot on the target, then it shows up there. Like, I mean, it's like drill number 1 or whatever from refinement and repetition, except it has a trigger press in it to snap the target to show the time. But
well, sure. And so I that drill came about because I was really good at pulling the trigger, but I wasn't really good at seeing what I needed to see. And remember that first drill came from bowling pin matches, where I knew that if I hit the pin on the first shot, I'd win the match. If I didn't hit the pin on the first shot, I wouldn't. So I just wanted to get really good at seeing what I needed to see. And to me, pulling the trigger seemed counterproductive, because I could already do that. Right.
Yeah.
I just want to measure my ability to get a great side picture. By the way, the revisions for refinement repetition are going very well. I've gotten through all the introduction chapters and get into the drills now, so we should be done with revisions of that book very quickly. That's
awesome. And I have something horribly unedited for you along those lines, so I will edit it.
That's going to be fun. That'll be great. All right, Gaz, last topic, question or comment?
I think we covered sort of the topics or ideas that I wanted to bring to the table. They sort of fed into the topics nicely. I think the biggest thing for me at the moment, based on what we discussed now, is if you're shooting IPSC and you've got short walkthroughs, make that normal by putting that into your ability to practice completing. So it's going to be a process to learn that, to give yourself the opportunity to do it. And I also think at some point, depending on how much shooting you're doing and how much shot pulling work that you've done, my advice to someone, especially with iron sights, is if it starts feeling like your aiming is becoming subconscious, let it become subconscious. Because as soon as you try and pull it back into being conscious, you start getting adverse effects again. And that's something that I had never noticed or learned before. It's just something I've noticed recently. If your scores are there, you probably were aiming, but subconsciously, and that's probably why you have no memory. Let it happen.
Now, is there a difference? So what it sounds like is maybe you've shifted your point of focus or your focus phrase to shot calling instead of something more specific visually.
Yeah, so I'm running the focus phrase, see the sights, call the shot. So I'm running that, but it seems to be becoming a lot more passive. So it's not something that I'm having to remind myself to do. Right. And the one thing that I think that's helped me with that is to control that conscious chatter is sometimes for me, I get the conscious mind or the chatter in my mind can get a little bit out of control. So I'm telling myself all the right things, but I'm not necessarily listening to myself.
Yeah, I can relate to that in the sense of if I tell myself something I already know how to do, then that's not like, I don't have to strictly tell myself that. It's passive. Like you're talking about, it's kind of cool.
But I think I think for me anyway, it serves as a firewall.
Yeah.
When I'm shooting a dot gun, I do not need to remind myself to call the shot unless I catch myself thinking about something else. And it's usually don't screw up the reload. If there's something I'm doing that has a reload component in it, that not always, but sometimes I'll have to battle that voice because the most pressure I'm under these days is when I hit record on the camera and I'm trying to make a video that Jay won't laugh at. So what I'll do, I'll go hit record, and then I'll go get back in my box. I'll do my little visualization, and I'll be like, okay, here we go. Blah, blah, blah. It's gonna go great. Don't screw up the reload. I guess it's my mom's voice, that I'm listening to. And then I respond to it with my mom's voice that says, when I sit on the dot and call a shot, I'm going to have the best time. And it always works.
Yeah. 100%. Yeah. So my focus phrase is definitely a firewall, but one thing that I've found that helped me recently is that when I'm waiting for the ROs to get back or for the range to get cleared, is I focus on my breathing while I'm passively running that focus phrase. That helps me almost become centered. Because since the World Shoot, where they wouldn't let us visualize on the line after the load and make ready, I've decided to change that entirely. So my process is slightly different now. I do the visualization for the load and make ready. And by allowing myself to focus on the breathing and passively run that focus phrase, that helps center me all the way through.
Yeah, and you do some fake yawns as well in some videos too, guys. Maybe subconscious.
So
I think so.
That brings up something that I've been, I don't want to say struggling, but I often don't know if people understand it. Gazz, would you say that when you're completely surrendered to shot calling, is that more, and I think I know the answer, I just want to hear your take on it. Jay's going to get a gun because he's suffering dry fire withdrawal. Is that the same thing as thinking about nothing? Or does that mean that shot calling is occupying so much of your mind that you can't think of anything else? What do you think is happening there?
I think it's more of the latter. So it's occupying my mind to the point that it's giving me the feeling of having an empty mind.
Of having a what?
Empty.
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah. So yeah, basically, I think it's occupying my mind to the point that my mind is allowed to be cleared. I'm allowed to, it almost feels like I'm thinking about nothing, but it's being occupied by that completely.
Right. And as long as you can get there on demand, it doesn't really matter, right? You don't need to be able to explain it super well, but you do need to be able to get there on demand. And it sounds like you figured it out. Yeah, that's great. All right, Jay, any final words of brilliance to compete with Gazz's top 2 witty quotes?
No, I can't do that, but I have a list of sponsors because I just wrote them down for other reasons. But it doubled for this one, so I'm gonna go down through sponsors really quick, and then you can add other ones that you need to. But so Walther for sure, AndersonShooting.com. I'm here right now. Thank you, Steve. Targets USA, AMG Lab, Hunters HD Gold, Outdoor Dynamics, CR Speed, GX Products, who makes my holsters, and then Rune Tactical, who does springs and followers for my magazine. So that's it.
All right, guys, let's have the sponsors.
I'm grabbing them up. So as always, thank you, Steve. Thank you, AndersonShooting.com. It's awesome to be a part of the team. Thank you to Bernard Agencies, Shooting Stuff, Zero Mike Bullets, Guns at Work, Pit Cerakote South Africa, Horse Ninja, Bad Baxter Productions, have I got you all? And Disney Accessories. Thank you guys very much.
All right, so I want to remind everybody we are a proud service of Walther Firearms. Jay Beal is not quite committed enough to wear a Walther hat, but that's okay.
I'm wearing a Velveteen hat, who he is also sponsored by Walther, so I should, anyway.
Close enough. And Jay, you probably haven't been receiving too many crates of guns that have been brought back on the 30-day money-back guarantee, have you?
I have not. It's been a while.
That must mean that they're not getting too many back, because if you're not getting crates of them, they're not coming back, because we know they all go to you. We don't know that for sure, but what we do know is if you buy a Walther that's not similar to J. Beal's personal concealed carry, gold 007, gold 9 grade PPK with a 22-pound trigger pull. All of them but that one do qualify for a 30-day money-back guarantee. If you don't like it, they'll take it back and may or may not send it to J. Beal. I know they're not sending it to me because I've only got one, and that's all I need because it works. And of course, Targets USA manufactures the finest steel targetry on the planet. CR Speed makes the finest. AMG-lab.com commands time continues to blow heads. You know all about that. Oop, I got that one wrong. Blow minds. Let's make sure we get that right. Continues to blow minds and turn heads. OutdoorDynamics.net remanufactures the finest competition ammunition. And Shooting Sports Innovations is a lot to type at your North Carolina roadside sobriety test. You know, Gazz, they don't have, sorry, Jay, they don't have roadside sobriety in South Africa. The guy just pulls up with a cash register and you put your bills in and off you go. It's much, much simpler than typing Shooting Sports Innovations. That's just, the guy pulls up. I just imagine Albert Vessels on a motorcycle pulling up. You've been drinking, sir? Cash drawer comes out, you put your money in and off he goes. You know? It's not quite that simple, but it's pretty close. And again, if you want a free preview of mental management, that's happening April 12th at 6 p.m. Go to andersonshooting.com, upcoming classes. And if you want to hang out with me and or Gazz in South Africa most of June, get a hold of Shanae or get a hold of me, or we'll point you in the right direction. All right, guys, if there's nothing more to add, we'll sign off so we can all get back to work. Almost did the catchy catchphrase too early.
Oh, we'll edit it out.
And I'm also starting to think that of all of the shooting teams that are out there, we might be the most handsome, right? With Gazz's gold chain and his silvery hair and my sandy blonde. Yeah, I think we're some dashing fellows. But that aside, until we meet again, be like us, do what we do, say it with us. 1, 2, 3.
Get to work.
Get to work.
Thanks, guys. Gazz and guys.